Hey, what's going on, guys? Hey, welcome to Ask Coach Jinx. I'm here with John Jenkins, my dad. We have a lot of topics to talk about. We're going to be talking about Texas A&M leaving their bowl games, the Gators losing to Central Florida, and a lot other interesting topics starting now. Mr. John Jenkins, how you doing, sir?
Hey, all right, Rafe. Merry Christmas to you there,
Merry
Hoss.
Christmas, man. Merry
You
Christmas.
bet, buddy. You bet.
We're probably not going to talk before the game on the playoffs. Probably this time next week, I'm just going to shut off my phone.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk, but like not like actual podcast. So we'll probably just start off with that, like the playoffs. What going into the playoffs? What are your predictions? What are your assumptions? And then we'll kind of
Yeah.
transition to other interesting topics that's been going on throughout the week.
Well, I'll say this about the playoffs. Let's just talk about the semifinals and the Final Four complexion. The way I see this thing shaping up, Cincinnati is got the they've got the nod from everybody around the country to say, hey, we're pulling for an underdog. We'd love to see this happen. I got as much respect and admiration for Nick Saban as anybody since I've known him for years and years, and knowing what he's put together at Alabama. He's got an NFL. Uh, he's got an NFL on deck machine rolling there at every position area. Everybody in college football tries to look and see what Alabama does. So again, let's acknowledge where he is right now. But Cincinnati, everybody's pulling for Cincinnati to say what about the big upset possibility? And let's not kid ourselves. Cincinnati they need Alabama to put them in this position. They're undefeated right now. If they need Alabama in this game, just like Buster Douglas needed Mike Tyson years and years ago when he was the biggest underdog to ever win a heavyweight title championship boxing match when he knocked Mike Tyson. That's how Cincinnati needs Alabama right now. So therefore, if they don't win this game, so what? They
Yeah.
gave it their best shot. And if they were playing somebody like Notre Dame or Florida or Georgia, whatever, people would say, yeah, but
Yeah.
that's not the best. Yeah, but hey, you know what? A few years ago, we saw something similar to this when University of Central Florida, Scott Frost came in and took on Auburn of the SEC, who had beaten Georgia and beaten Alabama that year, played them in a bowl game, and Central Florida prevailed, winning that game, and ended up with a perfect record, and the governor of Florida declaring them the national champion. Hey, which we all acknowledge. And you know what? You can look it up in the books. They are a shared champion, national champion, University of Central Florida, when they did that. So again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm not, my business like sense tells me Alabama will win this game. Now let's move on to the other
Clearly.
semifinal. Here's one of great intrigue and great interest because of this factor alone. Georgia has been beaten by Alabama the last 2 years by the same score of 41-24. Alabama's got their number. Georgia had as good a defense as any they've ever had in the history of their program, which says a lot. They held people, I'm talking about 8 different opponents to 7 points or less. I'm talking about shutouts, 3 or 4 shutouts, 3 points in one game, 7 and a couple others. One team scored 13 points on them. And then here comes Alabama, 41 points, an avalanche of scoring to put them away. Let me say this. I don't think Georgia wants any part of Alabama again.
I agree.
I don't think Georgia is excited at all to be in this bowl game against Michigan.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Michigan, they bounced back after an in-state loss against Michigan State midway through the season. They've had a great year. They've only got one loss on their schedule. Jim Harbaugh, who's been under the gun for a long time, is now in position to play for a national title. That's what they bought into when they brought him here. And I think he's got the enthusiasm, he's got the passion, and he's got the determination of his players to win this game and go head to head against Alabama for the national title. That's the way I see this thing shaping up.
So Michigan versus Bama, you think?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's probably realistic. It's interesting. We're talking about like how you think and how it affects your thinking this morning. Every morning I try to read the Bible, and that's what I was learning this morning. Is like your belief system either like set you up for success or it sets you up for failure. Like. And it's kind of like the Mike Tyson slogan: "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." And it seems like every time Alabama's in the picture with Georgia, like they get that first quarter, like their mind starts to go from the little engine that thinks he could to I'm second guessing if we could win this game. It's a mental issue.
I tell you what, there's a lot to that. It's amazing how different teams match up differently with other teams. Right now, Georgia does not match up with Alabama. They have not for the last 2 years. We've all seen that.
Yeah.
And they're, again, when you play an opponent twice in a season, quite often the results are different. But I don't think this is the case when it comes to Georgia and Alabama players facing each other.
Yeah. I think a lot of America expects Bama to beat Cincinnati. We're all pushing for Cincinnati, secretly. That's what we're all doing. But you're probably right.
There's a lot of that.
Michigan.
I think there's a lot of that because, hey, you know what? America pulls for the underdog. The David over Goliath factor.
Yeah, it happens.
This kind of thing exists in every walks of life. But again, I want to make it clear once again that Nick Saban has put this thing. He's got this machine rolling. You know that. You've been there with him. You've seen his operations over at Alabama, Rafe, and I've seen the
machine.
I've seen his works over the years, and he's got an NFL caliber team at every position area. That's what he does.
Yeah.
And that's what he develops, and that's what he puts in place, and that's the way it's going to happen. Come Cotton Bowl time against Cincinnati here. But again, that's why they play the game. We're sitting here talking about this. We have talk shows that are going on all over the country, and people are saying, well, they can do this and that. Special teams could be. Hey, listen, they're going to play the game. They're going to tee it up and kick off, regardless of what Rafe and John Jenkins say.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. Bama versus Michigan. We'll see what happens. They gotta make it happen, and Georgia's got to get past their mental clock. And to make things worse for all of America, this transfer portal is now starting to even get better for Alabama. Generally, when great players, are on a team like Florida, Southern Cal, they transfer down to get playing time. Right now, the transfer portal is allowing great players to go into Alabama. So next year, Alabama has one of the best running backs, great receivers, offensive line. They're stacking up. All the great players all over America are now going into Alabama. So what are your thoughts on that?
You know what? Isn't that a great way of describing it? When this thing was put in place by the administrators of NCAA, it was done in order to allow young men maybe that were not getting an opportunity, backups, to go finish their career as a starter somewhere else. I don't think they saw this coming. They didn't see these guys who are starters, like at Texas A&M, bailing out right now, leaving, and we'll talk about that later. But what you're describing is players of great caliber, of high draft choice capability, maybe with another year to play, to say, hey, I think I'll go to Alabama my senior year. I can play for a national title. I can get my NFL status and ranking enhanced, That's what's happening. That is a nightmare for coaches around the country right now.
Yeah. I think it was Nick's not Nick, it was Lane Kiffin, if I'm not mistaken, said that don't be mistaken, college football has a free agency. That was his
Yeah.
quote. Or someone's quote out there. I'm pretty sure it was Lane. All the fake news people
Well,
out
that's
there
what it
that fact
is.
check me, they can
It's worse than free agency because they can leave before their contract's up. I mean, that's what's happened to A&M, Texas A&M.
yeah.
Texas A&M essentially, what an embarrassment to the program there. You know, here's what's happening there. They've got a situation going on where they were picked fifth in the country to start the season. I knew that wasn't going to happen
Yeah.
because they lost their entire offense, which was actually pretty mediocre the year before. So they had a rebuilding offense with a potentially excellent defense, and they did beat Alabama. Okay, forget the rest of that. They get knocked off by Arkansas, Mississippi State, and everybody else that lines up in front of them on down the road. And now here they've got an opportunity to play in the Gator Bowl, which is a prestigious bowl game, by the way. It's one of the great bowl games. It's not like, the one of these Broken Spoke Motel sponsored bowl games out there in Timbuktu. This is one of the great traditional bowl games of all time, and they have their starting quarterback leave them, the backup leaves them, and the original starter is injured, out for the season. What do they have left? They've got supposedly a good quarterback for the future that's redshirting. They would have to take that red shirt off of him and play in one game. They're not going to do that. But here's what they're really scared of. If they were playing Notre Dame or let's say a traditionally top program like let's say Georgia or Florida or Mississippi State, somebody along that line, they would go ahead and say, well, yeah, we'll go down here and play, but we're all crippled up. We're all kinds of excuses. They get beat. So what? They played a class opponent. However, here's what they're facing. They're facing a team, Wake Forest, that does not have a good tradition. I mean, this is comparable to playing Rice or Vanderbilt or Duke. Perennial losing programs. Although, hey, I want to acknowledge the fine job the coaches have done at Wake Forest this year and the fine season they've had, probably maybe in the best of the history of the program. But still, it's still Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Wake Forest beats Texas A&M. It's a horrible taste in the mouth of all the Aggie faithful. They're moping around. They're moping around in the offseason. They're complaining. So what do? They say, well, let's blame it on COVID. Let's blame it on COVID. Hey, what a cop-out that is. Listen, this is all part of coaching. Jimbo Fisher, he's being paid to make these decisions, okay? And it's all part of coaching. Deal with it. Deal with injuries. What's your backup plan to the transfer portal, coach? What's your backup plan? And play the game. That's what we do. You don't cop out and forfeit and walk away. Hey, answer the bell, and bounce back. That's what we coach. That's what we teach these young men. So, hey, it's a horrible black eye. It's a horrible situation for Texas A&M this morning, right now.
Yeah. Well, coaching at Texas A&M isn't the best, friendly, patient environment. They went like 8-4 this year. If they would have lost to Alabama 7-5, you may have got fired. So in the season, hey, we beat Alabama. We got potential. We have one of the best recruiting classes. Blah blah blah. I kind of see it from both sides. But then, I can only imagine being a senior, not being able to go to your bowl. But Jimbo.
Well, listen, let me.
Jimbo's not stupid, man. He's not trying to get fired. Hey, losing to Wake Forest is going to lose the momentum of Alabama and the recruiting. And now this whole transfer portal, you lose to Wake Forest, everyone's gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Talking about this this hype on recruiting. That was his statement. That was his words saying, "No, we're going to have the best recruiting class ever in Texas A&M." Hey, don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. You think LSU and uh, Alabama, Mississippi State, Florida, and all them people are going to get wiped out in recruiting to Texas A&M? Kid, no, don't. Hey, that was just the remarks of Jimbo Fisher saying that, and it's amazing that some of these publicists around the country, Texas A&M, the number one in the country in recruiting. Oh yeah, let's put them in there. Don't kid yourself. Listen, it's all going to shake out 4 and 5 years from now. What kind of recruiting class they had. That's
Yeah.
when it's going to show up. Not
Yeah.
not on signing day. Some of those guys aren't even going to show up. Some guys they sign won't even show up to class the first day of class.
Yeah.
That's the way it always goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about not showing up. My future hometown, Oviedo, Florida, had University of Central Florida beating the mess out of the Gators, and the Gators did not show up last night. I know you didn't watch
No,
the game, but what are your thoughts about it? I mean, 29-17,
hey,
and the Gators, who have never lacked talent, never lacked resources, are getting beat to a team right down the street that lacks in every category. So what are your thoughts?
you know, here is another catastrophic situation that a perennial top program is facing. The Florida Gators. This was as damaging to them as any bowl game could ever be. They're playing an in-state lowly opponent, so to speak. Now, in the eyes of the Florida Gators, however, University of Central Florida is a team on the move. It's a program on the move. It
100%.
is a program on the rise. Hey, uh, you know, here's a team that was highly excited about playing Florida, knowing that they could get a one-up if they could beat them. And poor Dan Mullen, Mullen's the head coach who did a great job there. Played in the conference championship, 32-29, I think, against Alabama a year ago. Gets a pink slip halfway through this season. What a nightmare. He did a great job at Mississippi State. He did a super job as a coordinator at Florida previously, and at Utah, and everywhere he's been, he's done a great job. It just shows you the impatience factor that we're living in today's world, where the name of the game is win right now. They want the return on their investment right now, and that didn't happen for the Florida Gators this year, and it just continued on. This interim coach took it on the chin, along with the rest of the staff. That program's in disarray right now, and certainly Gus Malzahn couldn't be more excited because, hey, I mentioned that situation earlier in our program about years ago when Central Florida went undefeated and they beat Auburn. Hey, Malzahn was the coach at Auburn at that
That is
time.
so funny.
Yeah, so he's now at Central Florida. He couldn't be more excited to be where he is, right down there in Orlando, Florida. You bet.
Yeah. Yep. We'll see how that shapes out, man. See how that shapes out. Florida's is like Texas. Like, man, there should be no reason you guys aren't slaughtering everyone, beating everyone. So an average year,
Yeah,
there's
true. They've got the upper hand. Resource wise, they've got resources big time. The Bull Gators, they call them. Their funding cast is called the Bull Gators. They're as strong as anybody in the country.
Yeah, dude. And you set me up with pro coaching, and dude, or pro scouting, and I scouted all the SEC, Texas. Obviously, they're not SEC, but Texas A&M, LSU, Alabama, and everyone on the Gators roster from the beginning of time to from the beginning of Adam and Eve to now. It seems like, good night, dude. The greatest athletes ever. Some of the greatest athletes you've trained to that the
That's right.
NFL has sent us to like develop and get them back to the NFL. It's like the Gator boys. Anyone that's been associated with the Gators, they're just phenomenal, dude. You know.
Yeah.
I
You know
don't
what?
know.
I've always felt that, Rafe. My days coaching at Mississippi State, I viewed Florida, University of Florida. This was before. This was back when Charlie Pell was the head coach there. Way before other coaches, Spurrier and some of those others arrived on the scene. And even back, I'm talking about the late 1970s, early 80s, I saw University of Florida as a giant, potentially giant program, a great location. Certainly a location that would be incredibly successful in my type of offense as far as spreading it out and spraying it all over the park on people. Uh, and there's no excuse whatsoever to be rebuilding. They need to be reloading. They can be reloading with Georgia and Alabama and some others. But hey, I'll say this, boy. As I mentioned previously, the patience factor is real thin. Because again, Dan Mullins he's a great coach. He did wonderful things everywhere he's been, and he had that program on the move. And hey, there was a couple of mishaps this year. They didn't give him any time, did they?
Right. So let's talk about Tom Brady, the Bucks getting shut out. First time Tom's been shut out in 15 years. They signed Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, that's not going to be an immediate impact. Maybe later on, but the whole week has been crazy for the Bucks.
Yeah,
all week. So, what are your perspective? What's your thoughts on that whole situation?
You know, I'm a big Tom Brady admirer and fan. I really admire excellence over a long period of time. And here's a guy that's done it like no quarterback ever in the history of our game. And he remains on top of his game mentally, physically. And he was right there ready again against the New Orleans Saints. However, all of a sudden, I look up on the screen and we've got 4 injured receivers not playing. We've got
Leonard, really? I didn't know that.
4 injured receivers, and certainly Godwin got his knee tore up in the game, an ACL tear. He went out. I think it was early in the first quarter. Fournette, who's really was off to a heck of a season, probably his best season in pro football, he goes out with a hamstring injury. Brady, he's throwing it. It looked this game against the Saints, who also was playing with a backup quarterback. Here's 2 teams, and now don't get me wrong, the defense, particularly the coverage, the man coverage aspect of the Saints over these newcomer receivers that Tampa had in the game. It was the ugliest regular season game I've seen in a long time. It looked like something out of a first or second exhibition game. There's no, it's just horrible production on the field. 9-0, and I'm sure the ushers had to wake people up at the end of the game, nudge them to say, "Hey, the game's over. Go on home. It's over. Wake up."
Oh my God.
But I mean, I feel for Brady because he is a warrior. He's a champion. He would not take himself out of the game. He was out there taking hits. It's a wonder he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
With no supporting cast around him. I tell you what, again, I come out of that game looking at him and watching the way he competed under adversity, probably admiring him more than I ever have, knowing what he went through with that subpar cast of substitutes on the field. Like I said, it was totally embarrassing for the Super Bowl champion to not have players on the field representing that team against the Saints, who, again, the Saints, they were 4 games behind in the division. So I mean, it was just like, what are they doing right now? What's Tampa doing? Are they just hoping that maybe they're going to cruise right on into the playoffs? You know what? You need some momentum. You need some you need some action going into the playoffs, and so they better hurry up and get it straight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, we did not talk about this last week when we did our podcast, but you wanted to talk about the UCLA alleged recruiter going around the nation.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because honestly, I
Yeah.
haven't kept up with that thing. You thought that was so funny. You kept talking about it, and we
Oh
never
yeah,
even
yeah. I
mentioned
tell
it.
you what, you know what? It's great. I tell you what, you got to have a little fun in life naturally, and this is a serious matter, but it really strikes me with a lot of humor also that an imposter coach and an imposter recruiter posing as a UCLA representative is going around the country making offers to players, and he's done his homework. He right down here in Naples, Florida, at First Baptist Academy, there's a top offensive lineman that's heavily recruited that he offered, and the young man accepted this as legitimate, uh, scheduled an official visit and all this, and then came out later and said, "Gosh, I'm totally upset and really disappointed. I was looking forward to this trip with UCLA, and you know what's crazy? There's a lot of fans on the West Coast, not just at UCLA but other programs, that they're pointing fingers at the lazy approach of coaches and recruiters not getting out there and hustling. West Coast football has gone down considerably, incredibly, in recent years, as far from a national scope, a national standpoint. I know when this imposter was out there making offers, one thing I found very hilarious was that some of the fans that really follow UCLA football, they've been very upset with the non aggressive attitude of Chip Kelly and his coaching staff of not getting out there and hustling players and not making any offers and not doing anything according to their thoughts. And when this imposter came on the scene, they one guy came up on the message board and said, "Well, hey, at least we've got one guy out there making offers."
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, well, at least we've got one guy out there making offers, regardless of whether or not he's part of the university or not. That's great, isn't it?
So funny. So funny. Well, dude, it gives me a flashback of all my little times I've done stuff. I remember Les Miles. I was coaching my first coaching job, Calvary Baptist, right across the town, Evangel High School. Les Miles, when he was the head coach at LSU, shows up.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it. It's like on national television. I'm right down the street. I see Les Miles on the sideline, and I throw on this 1980s, retro Houston Cougars jacket, and I just I drive across town and I walk on the field, and everyone thinks I'm a recruiter. I'm just hanging out with Les Miles for a couple of hours watching the game.
There you go.
Listen to him. There you go.
He wanted to know if you were coming out of that Cougar facility too, didn't he?
Hey, we had a good time. He ended up hiring me, almost hired me.
I know it. Hey, isn't that interesting how that
after
works?
a while, dude. Hey, we had a good time that night and built a friendship, and then I applied for a job. It was between me and one other guy. A few years later. That's hilarious, dude. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. You gotta do what you gotta do. Obviously, like offering false scholarships aren't real, but whatever. At least
that was very. You know what? There's all kinds of personalities and characters out there in the world, and that's what makes it fun. If we were all the same, it wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah.
I've always said that, but you can't be crossing the line into unlawful action, and that's clearly what this is. And yet, it does have a humorous stroke to it. You got to admit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, closing thoughts. Any closing thoughts that you want to talk about before we end?
This season has been full of a lot of upsets each and every week. And guys like me and you can get on here, Rafe, and say, "Well, here's what I think. Here's what I think. Here's how things are shaping up." Hey, the fun part of it is this: the great thing about football and sports in general is you've got to go out and prove yourself every time out. You've got to go redeclare yourself every time out. That's what sports teaches us. That you don't just ride along with your accolades one day after another and say, "Look what I did. Look what I did." Hey, you got to go redeclare yourself. And you know what? What's to say, particularly in college football here, the way the semifinals are shaping up and the way the finals are going to be, what's to say we're in for a rude awakening with some more upsets along the way? And the same applies in the NFL playoffs that are coming up here in a few weeks as we close out the regular season. You know, uh, I have not seen I've not seen a dominant team take over and just out muscle people in the NFL this season at all. We've seen Cliff Kingsbury's crew at Arizona have a great start. We've seen naturally the defending champion Tom Brady's team real consistent to a degree. Now they've got some real injury problems. We saw Green Bay get blasted in the opening game, and then they've lost a couple more. But they look pretty solid always with Aaron Rodgers at the helm if he's going to be healthy. So it's going to be an interesting finish for all of us to witness. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, Merry Christmas, man.
You bet, Rafe. I tell you what, Merry Christmas to you, buddy. Have a good one, and we'll get those listeners back again soon and have another great session here.
Yeah, after the New Year's. All right, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. You bet. Have a good one.
All right, bye.